Good evening, everybody. And if you're just tuning in, welcome. You are listening to the Angel Rock. I'm your host, Lorilei Potvin. If you're listening, come on over and watch us on UFO Paranormal Radio on the YouTube channel that we have there. You can watch us on various Facebook pages, such as myself, my guests. We also are under UFO Paranormal Radio on Facebook, Twitch, Twitter. So there's many places you can catch it live. If you've never been to my show before, welcome. And if you're a returning guest, welcome back as well. A little bit about my show. I could say I cover all aspects of the supernatural, anything from the paranormal to UFOs to aliens. I also cover many things like how to access the power of the mind, power of positivity, chakras, energies, how to speak to your spirit guides and connect with them, even teach you how to access your own intuitive gifts. I'm a Canadian psychic medium. I'm also a crystal Reiki energy healer, Akashic Records practitioner, spiritual teacher, and mentor. And I'm a registered nurse. And tonight, just because it's a holiday month, it's a little more difficult to get people tied down for guests. And I always have a built in guest, just like he does. My fellow partner in crime that lives in the same house as me, the Dell, who is also a host of his own show here on United Public Radio Network, The Delicious Recipe. Welcome, Dell.
Hello, everybody out there.
Hello, everybody out there. I will warn people too, if you're on Facebook and we don't address you, it's because I am not seeing your comments. That's been happening a little bit. So if you come on over and comment, like I said, over on the YouTube channel, again, if you're just joining a few seconds late, it's UFO Paranormal Radio. And I will try and grab one of my phones here and keep an eye on the comments just in case. So Dell and I were talking about this, about what are we going to talk about tonight? Because there is a lot to talk about, actually. And we said, let's just talk about some of the stuff that's going on in the world here, right?
Correct.
Yeah, well, one thing I got a chance to listen to, Dell was ahead of me. He listened already. There's been a leaked document supposedly that came out here in Canada and is going wild in the truther community. And we both had a chance to look at it. I don't know what to tell you except that basically the gist of it was saying through some of our health ministers across, I guess, federally, that the unjabbed they were asking for us to be confined. What was the wording exactly? Basically, it was like a prison. We would be people that were unjabbed, not meaning necessarily myself, I'm saying the global we, that are unjabbed, that they would be confined at maximum security, wasn't it, Del?
Yep, correct. And I guess
Mm-hmm.
this goes back to this document that went beforehand when they were uh, putting through to put all these camps available for people across all the major cities across Canada, and then the supplemental communities afterwards. And Thunder Bay was
That
definitely
I
one of
do
them.
know is true. That I
Yeah,
do know is true. And we
right.
know that for a fact because we do have a few members of parliament that are trying to be the voice of the people. Hey, Zach, man, welcome. And he was actually thrown out of parliament practically for asking exactly what these buildings were and why they were there. There was 11 of them across Canada. Randy Hillier. I've watched the video. I believe it says, what on earth is going on? If you take a look on Facebook, that video is still out there. He never did get an answer. And then there was a document. Now, again, is the document true or not? But I no, actually, it was on one of the news releases. Never mind, I'm going to back up there. It was a news release. One of the members of the government claiming that right where we live in Thunder Bay, they are in the midst of building one amongst many other places as well. So these camps are going up, definitely. So we took a look at Dan Dick's Press for Truth on YouTube. What were your thoughts, Del, with that? Because that was quite an interesting piece that he did. And I think it's important not just for Canada, but for anybody that kind of take a look at that.
Yeah, well, it's when you sent me this, what was it the other day, or I can't remember if it was yesterday or today,
This morning.
this morning. Yeah, I was looking at it, and then just red flags sort of went up in my like. This can't be true. This like, there's so many things that can be faked out there, and people can go and just make copies or make documents and that to make them look legitimate. And I was sort of looking at him, going, "Well, this can't be actually be true," and because it seemed a little bit too out there that no other news organization period would be talking about this. Like this would be like big news that they were rounding up unjabbed people. And so I was thinking, well, just wait on this and see what happens. And he had come to I guess, to the conclusion out there, due to a part that the Canadian military's PSYOP division, which was widely talked about beforehand, and there was a part about this wolf scare in Nova Scotia in the Maritimes in Canada. And what it was a propaganda thing by the military to scare people about being outdoors, that there was wolf attacks and there's huge amounts of wolves out there. And the military was out there playing wolf calls and stuff like that out in the bush, right?
Speakers.
So that, right, because you know what, fear is a big thing. And if you can make the story better and to give some little bit of evidence, word of mouth, like the telephone, travels very quickly. And then when you have people that don't look and research and don't go and ask questions about stuff and just jump to conclusions, then the wildfire of propaganda goes through. And we see this happen all the time. We're seeing this happen right now with the jabbed and unjabbed debate throughout the stuff there. So now we come to this letter that came out that you sent me there. And that's why I was sort of questioning this in the beginning. I says, okay, I'm going to wait on this. And his conclusion was is that this is probably part of the military propaganda machine again to put out this letter, whether they leaked it on purpose or accident. I think he believes they did it on purpose, and so that this will be, he calls it a red herring, but a document to be out there so that when they do take people that are, I guess, dissidents to the Canadian government or against what's being done there, and they do get taken away, people go, oh, that was just all that letter. It was already debunked that was a fake letter, that they're not, the government doesn't go and take people and throw them in these jails for violating being jabbed or not. So that's the sort of the conclusion. It's not a letter, but it is a letter. It's like the wagging the dog thing, right?
I want to give a shout out to Joe Montaldo, who I heard pop in. I don't know if he's going to say hi or not. He's the owner of UPRN, and he produces many of us. He has many great shows of his own here on United Public Radio networks, such as UFO Undercover and the Greg Zone Uncensored with Michelle DeRoche on Saturday. So hi, Joe. I see you. I hear you. Well, that's just the thing, right? Because, and again, we're talking about what we know being here in Canada, but there's all kinds of stuff going on all over the world. One of our provinces, New Brunswick, I believe, has just not, if you are not jabbed, you cannot go and even buy food. So that's something new that hit, but there is a leaked document from October 10th, 2020. And it went like wildfire through the truther community. It was somebody that claimed to be high up in the federal government in the party that's in control. And it was debunked by many places saying this isn't true, there's no way. Even with Rebel News, who is an independent news source here, Ezra Levant, who owns it, came out and said that I've been sent this thousands of times. This is absolute BS. Well, is it now? Because when you break it down by quarter, and somebody just sent me the quarters, like I believe it's from October, or I think it's the end of August to the end of October. It lists by steps what's going to happen. Pretty well 99% of everything in these steps per quarter has already happened. So I don't think it's a fake document. That's the problem, though. But the point we brought this up and why we think it's important, just stopping by to check in on us. We're here. I know I took the week off. Sorry, last week, guys. Didn't have a guest at the last minute. Tried, and I thought, got lots of replays. So that's why we're here. We're chit-chatting. We've got a good guest for you next week. Del's had her on before. Marielle Ford Clark from Ireland, and very unfortunately, she was supposed to be on a couple of weeks ago and had a very unexpected incident happen within her family. So she's rebooked for next week. So we will have a great guest next week. So getting back to this with this letter, that was the whole point we wanted to make, because we have seen this time and again. I have, because I get sent stuff from all over the world, like daily, practically. Sometimes 100, 150 different things. I haven't got time to look at half of them, but I usually skim them. And I remember in Toronto, there was a bunch of United Nations armored vehicles that were parked outside this place that was known as a manufacturing facility for hydroxychloroquine. And it went like wildfire through the truther community. Now, the thing that got me right away was if you're manufacturing armored vehicles for the UN, why are you allowing people to go right up to it and film it and go right around inside the facility and film it? Right there was a red flag for me. I have a friend, excuse me, who's been in the was in the military for over 40 years. He's been on my show before here, Juan Antonio Manzer, and I sent it to him. I knew if anybody would know anything about it, he would. He got back to me within the hour and said it's no longer a pharmaceutical manufacturing plant that's moved a block down the street. And actually, the owners of that facility originally were murdered. There's been some stuff that's come up in the news recently about that murder because they never really found out who facilitated this murder. But anyways, it actually was exactly what it said. This is a new company that bought this facility. They do manufacture armored vehicles for around the world. So, of course, the truther community ran with this, right? So, what does it do? I think it just goes to further facilitate that you can't trust those truthers, those darn conspiracy theorists. Look at this, they jumped all over this. There's no truth to it. But you can also look at it this way too. Yes, it was what it was supposed to be. But still, out of all the vehicles that they manufacture, why the 6 armored vehicles for the UN? I don't know. What's your thought? Would you think this was sort of, like you said, a psyop to get the truther community to jump all over it and spread like wildfire just to disprove how crazy and prove how crazy they are in everybody else's eyes?
Yep. Well, that's
Hey,
sort
Dave.
of a that's sort of a good thing to sort of a good point there is that
Mm-hmm.
you have to look at how the way that our community or our social system sort of has come to the place that we are right now. We're going in and taking people's comments that they made 25, 30 years ago because they don't agree with the narrative right now and going, hey, well, look at what this person said back then, and then
Yeah.
cancel this person, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
so now, if you can go this part here and say it could be a trick or something like that, whatever, that somebody gets something wrong, and they're one that's on the other side says, well, you can't believe them. See what they did here? Everything else that they say is got to be all fake or fabricated, or they're wrong, or they don't know what they're talking about, right? That's a trick that's done to when people try to take over and discount people, right? They
Mm-hmm.
go off to one thing that you got wrong. Well, you can do this on anybody. If
Mm-hmm.
nobody, anybody out there on either side, you can go and say, hey, well, remember back when you were 10 years old and you believed this? Well, I can't believe anything you believe when you're 40 or 50 or 30 or whatever age because
Mm-hmm.
of that one thing. And that's just the whole part of the way society has gone there for
Mm-hmm.
these people that want to take control.
Mm-hmm.
And these people that are on this other side, this movement of people that want their belief to be the only belief that's out there. It's
Mm-hmm.
almost like a cult. It's a it is this a cult mentality, right? It
Mm-hmm.
says we discount everything that you say if you don't agree with us. And
Mm-hmm.
you're seeing this right now. And that's why it's so important. We say this all the time. Do your due diligence, to do your own research and check things out. Just don't jump on the first thing that you hear.
Mm-hmm.
Look at it and ask questions about it,
Mm-hmm.
because that's important. It's not just because here in Canada. Do that in the US, do that in the UK,
Everywhere.
Australia, everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
because the information is out there. You have to go and look at where is this information coming from and what is going on. I've talked about this many times about the prestige. It's a magic trick, right? There's the whole part. It's like a 3 parts to it, right? To find out that at the end you think that something had happened, but it really didn't happen. You didn't know what the magic was in behind and what was actually being done, right? You end up with this outcome that is not really a true outcome,
Mm-hmm.
right?
It's an
It's a
illusion.
big magic trick.
No, it's an illusion, and that's just the thing, right?
Hmm.
And I've been finding more and more now within the truther community that there have been a lot of these, if you will, red herrings, or like you said. So, like, this is happening over in Australia, guys. It's bad in Australia right now, and there are people that are in camps. I just saw some video footage today. It was crazy what went on in this video, just crazy. And the person that they were threatening to fine $5,000 if she walked less than 5 feet to a fence. Yet other people were allowed to go to the fence, but she's not. It was crazy. And she was using common sense and logic, and asking legitimate questions. Well, why can't I do this? And why can't, and it was to go do her laundry or something. So it is going on there. But what I'm finding with the truther community, if you will, is there are people, whomever they may be, that are throwing this kind of information out into, people looking for whatever they believe their truth is. So what I tend to do, I send it to you, what I sent you today. I may have sent it to Dave. I don't know if I sent it to Dave or not. I may not have, because it was in Canada. But I send it to a few people, and there's people I know that will be able to debunk it, or will, because you watch different stuff than I do, and that's why we share stuff back and forth. And I have other people like that. I have somebody on my list that I send stuff here locally, and they ask me, where did this come from? And at first I was like, I didn't pull it out of my ass. Like, I got it from a somebody that sends me, really good stuff. But the whole point, and you and I discussed this, was, what do we say on every show? Every time we talk about this kind of stuff, you you need to do your own research. Do your own research. You find out where, if you don't think this is true, or you don't like the way it's worded, or you don't trust just because I sent it to you or someone else sent it, because we got to use our own due diligence, if you will, our own discernment. And the same thing, I always call it the proverbial back shelf. If I'm not sure about something, I stick it back on the proverbial back shelf. Without fail, if something else will come up in the future to either debunk it or help support it. But it still doesn't mean that it's 100% true. The powers that be, whomever that may be, whomever you consider the power to be, they're not going to let us know what's going on, guys. I hate to tell you, but they're not. Because why would they let us know? I'm serious. Like, if there was, like, I'm talking about secretive stuff that we think we may be finding out, such as this letter today. They're not going to let us know. We're going to find out, and there's a reason why that letter was out there. The truth eventually may prevail, and we'll find out why. Maybe just to cast more shadow of doubt on what's going on. Like, I could not believe listening to Dan Dix from Press for Truth, because I didn't hear about this wolf thing. I know you did. But
Hmm.
my whole point was, there's a whole organization apparently in our military to use propaganda, and basically don't look at the man pulling the levers behind the curtain. Listen to what we put out there to turn people's heads in other directions. And they were actually discovered. We actually found this out. We're not unique. This is going on all over the world, right?
Yep, correct.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the whole part. There is, if you think about it, if you jumble up all the information as much as possible to get people that can't find out what's going on, then you
Mm-hmm.
don't know exactly what the people that want to get things done, what they're
Mm-hmm.
actually doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
The whole thing that no one sees what the left is doing, or the right, eh? It's
Mm-hmm.
sort of the magic trick.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the big thing. Like, now you got to look at what stories are going on there right now. You have Ghislaine Maxwell's story going on there, with huge amounts of people there being that were brought up in the list of that. But also, you have the Jussie Smollett case there too, that's going on there too, with that part there. And if people still believe that Jussie Smollett is innocent of what he's done, then you know what? Maybe you should just sort of put them on your back burner of your friends list, and sort of leave them sort of on the sideline, because
What, you mean, you don't have some wonderful beachfront property you can sell them right now, Del, with right here where we live, after the
yeah,
foot of snow
exactly.
we got
Yeah,
last night?
yeah, that's true. That's right. I'm back to toque weather again. Yeah,
Hmm.
minus 20 degrees Celsius, -3 Fahrenheit there today, currently right now.
You got
Got
about a foot of snow.
a big dump of snow. Yeah,
Hmm. Winter has arrived with a vengeance.
yeah.
Zach Mann says Jesse Smollett, the first American to scam Nigerians. Actually, right, Zach? And they practiced ahead of time too.
Yeah.
Foot of snow. Wow, Dave, you have to check out my Facebook profile because I streamed live when it started, and then I think it was after midnight, but it went till about 4 in the morning. The snow there is. Well, Dell knows he shoveled it, so believe me,
Yeah.
there is a lot. Mm-hmm.
Well, it started Sunday. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it did. So it's well, that's what happens. It's December. I mean, we some there's been very few Christmases that we've had without snow. There's been a few, but not many. So now that it's here, I highly doubt it's going to disappear. So it is what it is. In a way, I am kind of glad and I'm kind of not about this letter because it put me in a very angry mood this morning seeing this letter. And the only thing is, I do, again, I don't put 100% faith in anybody. But I don't know. I tend to trust some of the stuff that Dan Dix puts out there. What do you think, Del? He puts his neck out there to report on stuff.
Yep. He's been pretty consistent, anyways,
Mm-hmm.
over the board for
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. But he's also been set up to as well, right? To
Mm-hmm.
given fake stories, and he actually talked about it. If anybody wants to check out his YouTube thing that he released there today, he talks about this letter and he talks about the stuff that the
Wayfair.
government military did in Nova Scotia, and then he also talks about how he's been set up by he can't really say excuse me, can't really say, well, was it the Canadian military propaganda unit that set him up, or somebody in government, or some other little faction, whoever it was, to set him up on a story that he ended up being fined for, and for I guess what you'd say, pandemic infraction. I think
Yeah.
cost him fifty
Yeah.
thousand dollars. You
Yeah.
you can listen to his whole story and check out
Mm-hmm.
what he said there.
Yeah,
That
because
was
he
on.
mentioned about the Wayfair story that came out there a
Oh yeah,
while
that's.
ago. That
Mhm.
now again, I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know. He says it's not. That he proved that it wasn't. Dave asked, "Is it dry or wet snow?" I'd say dry, wouldn't you?
Yeah, right now, yeah, it's cold and crisp right now, just before we
Mm-hmm.
came on the
If
air.
it was wet snow, oh dear God, that would weigh a
Oh,
ton.
it was fluffy, yeah,
It's
fluffy
Christmas
snow,
snow.
except for what the street plows there left the windrow at the end of the driveway. That was pretty
Hmm.
packed, as it those ones hit the salt and stuff like that,
Hmm.
so that stuff gets pretty heavy. But
Yeah, and that's just the beginning. Imagine what the camp got.
yeah, exactly.
Because it's in a basin, so if we got that much, it probably got almost double. So, so like I said, I don't know. Like we thought we'd talk about that. I don't know if you guys out there have been seeing some of the protests going on. They're obviously not covered in mainstream media. I saw one just from Italy. There was well over 1 million people out in the streets. I also saw one from, I believe, Belgium or today as well. There was at least that many, and there was. I'm trying to think where else I've heard. Austria, I believe, is they're supposed to be under all lockdown if you're not jabbed, and nobody's listening. They're just out in masses and droves, and so there are people speaking up, stepping up. But let's get into some U.S. politics. I want to talk about Nancy Pelosi, right? But I'll answer Dave here for a minute. He said, "Good time of year for indoor activities, unless you like winter sports." Both of us like winter sports. The problem is our bodies don't like us to be doing that. I used to ski, do all kinds of stuff. You play hockey, Del. You haven't played hockey in a while, though, with your legs and knees and everything, right?
Yeah,
Hmm.
but yeah, ice fishing, no, that hasn't started up yet.
Oh, yeah,
They're
you like ice
just
fishing.
getting into the freeze now, so
Hmm. Of
that's in
course,
another month or two.
you got to stay warm with ice fishing, though. That's the fun of that, right?
Yeah,
Was it
exactly.
who was the cook, the guy that came up here, Matty? He's Canadian, isn't he? And he
Oh
visited one
yeah,
of your
Maddie
friends?
Matheson. Yeah,
Yeah, one of somebody Dell knows because these guys set
yeah,
up like some of them like houses on top of the ice with the ice hole in there. Didn't he go visit somebody you knew and filmed it for
yeah.
TV?
Well, I used to work with Lukey and
Hmm.
for Willie's dad there, Wilson Drywall and Contracting, and Lukey there built this insane ice hut there. It's got like a queen size bed in there, a lazy boy, uh,
Hmm.
satellite TV, full kitchen, and uh, he's got his holes for in the floor. He just pops them up there and with electronic signalers and bells on it, so he can be laying down in bed, and then if a fish takes the line there, the sensor will go off and ring the little bell, and little strobe light will go off, so you can get up out of bed. And
And you
when
don't have to leave your house because
no,
the
he's got
hole's right.
everything in there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's huge too. I think it's like about 20 by 20
Mm-hmm.
shack. So it's
Mm-hmm.
pretty fair size. Yeah, it's got like full size fridge, like a regular house fridge, a regular
Mm-hmm.
house stove, all on propane, and he's got whatever the generator, solar, everything like that on
Yeah.
there.
So you
Yeah,
can
so
get
him and his
creative.
dog go out there every year and sits on the ice and
Fishes.
relaxes, watches satellite TV. He's got
Mm-hmm.
because you got cell service out there too, so it's almost like being
At
having
home
like your own being in your house and watching TV, and you have a hole in your floor
to
and just
fish.
catch fish all day.
Yeah. So there you go, Dave. You have to come up and visit us in Thunder Bay here. I told Zach the same thing. Sometime you have to come up here, him and Jamie. So, so yeah, as I said, let's get into some American politics here. Holy cow, you guys! I hate to say it, but what do we want to say, Mister B? There, his approval ratings are down in his boots. There's AOC we can talk about, but I want to mention Nancy Pelosi. See if you guys have seen this video. First of all, Mr. B there claims that he has a nasty cold from his 1.5-year-old grandson that loves to kiss him. So he doesn't have the big C word. He's just got a cold. Well, that isn't his voice. I don't know about you guys, but mind you, I guess your voice can change quite a few octaves if you do have a cold. But they were showing the level of confusion. I believe it might have been on Fox. I saw this. Yeah, it was with what's the older guy? It's not Tucker Carlson. What's it? I can see him. I just
Hannity.
thank you, Hannity. It was on Sean Hannity last week, and he said, "Whoa, the most powerful people running the country." He said first he ran with Mr. B, how confused he was, and then the approval ratings of Kamala, or should I say disapproval. But then he showed this video of Nancy Pelosi. Oh my God. She was talking about a bird and a nest, but she couldn't form a sentence. Like it literally, her and Biden were at the same communication school. You never saw that video, right, Doug? Because I asked you about it.
No, I didn't see that one.
Oh my God, it was mind blowing. It was mind blowing. And it wasn't spliced together. Like this was literally her trying to communicate. Nobody had a clue what she was talking about. And you could see this worried look on her face. Like she knew that the words weren't connecting in her brain. And I thought, oh dear God, this is what's running your country. This is what's running your country, people in the US. I should talk with what we have running. Would you say Nancy Pelosi is only popular in San Francisco? The rest of America dislikes her. Agreed, Zach. But this video, if I can find the link to Hannity, I will post it on my Facebook page under this. You guys, this was mind blowing, like mind blowing. I have never seen her like literally could not put more than two words together. She was not under the influence of anything that I could see. It was literally like she had like and I can't diagnose even being a nurse, but it looked like she had a mini stroke or something going on there. But she rivaled Mr. B there when it came to communication. I don't know. Um, I'm going to add Dave Patel said he would like to see our area. Well, you're more than welcome to come visit if you can get across the border. And then what did Miss AOC do? What was her infraction that we watched this morning?
Well, her thing was is that she said that the looters weren't actually looting.
Oh, that's
Like,
right. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, this
Yeah.
is what. So she, all the video and stuff like that you've
Yeah.
been showed, says, well, that's not real. That's all just fake, right? And says they're not really stealing from something. And that's the part that everybody's blasting on. So when somebody goes and breaks into somebody's property and walks off with their merchandise, her part is that that's not stealing.
Yeah, but who were we watching? It was reporting on it, and they had a good point. Like they said, it wasn't like they were robbing Kroger's. like they were hungry and they needed
Right.
to feed their family. They were
Yeah.
robbing Gucci and Louis
Right.
Vuitton and
Well, it
Christian Louboutin.
doesn't make it right. Period. That
I
people
agree.
are stealing it up. But he says, but you figure that if people were that destitute, that
Hmm.
that there was this food supply shortage and everything
Yeah.
like that, that all these robbers are not robbing food stores. That you
Hmm.
figure they'd be robbing. Yes, they're robbing high-end merchandise stores,
Hmm.
taking computers, jewelry, expensive clothing, and stuff like
Hmm.
that, so that they can go and sell this stuff. So you got to figure this out too. So this is part of the way that things are spun, right? So you have one other group saying, well, they're selling this stuff so that they can go and purchase food and buy the stuff. Says, okay, well that doesn't make any part of the argument any better, because then who is buying it? If
Hmm.
nobody's got any money to get anything, right? And
Hmm.
so you're turning around and you're selling all this high-end merchandise so that you could get money to go get food. Like, see how this argument sort of starts to fall apart, right? If nobody's got anything to spend anything, so I don't know. It's just ridiculous. Anyways, all those people on that side are all ridiculous in the U.S. politics. So, like, I guess their whole point is that as long as they don't say it or recognize it, then it's not true,
It didn't
right?
happen.
Right, and that's been the whole get go of the Biden Harris uh, fiasco of being elected into power, right? As long as Kamala Harris doesn't go to the border, she doesn't see it, it's not happening,
Not
right? As long
happening.
as, right, everything that happened there says, hey, the U.S. isn't, gas prices and food prices aren't going up because I didn't acknowledge that they are, right?
Ah.
So,
Hmm.
right, as long as you don't acknowledge, and if you listen to that Jen Psaki, and
Oh, peppermint
oh,
patty. Isn't that what
and
Dan?
it's
Um.
unbelievable. And I
Oh.
got to give a lot of credit there for, I can't remember what his name is, the press secretary for Fox that keeps on asking her questions and stuff like
Oh,
that.
the blonde guy. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
awesome. He's
and
awesome.
the double speak that comes out of her mouth and everything like that is just unbelievable. And this is, you can see, like, this happens here in Canada too as well. Our Canadian national news totally is a propaganda thing for the Trudeau government,
Hmm.
and they don't, they ask softball questions for this, and they refuse to ask proper questions, and then you have here the blonde-haired guy from Fox ask her questions, and you just hear all the double speak
Well,
and
then when she's really caught off guard, she just gets really pissy with him. She gets really
yeah,
nasty with him. There's the guy Dan. My brain is not working tonight. Dan Bongino. He calls her
yeah,
peppermint patty, and I mean, and you'd have to be our age, probably know what the peanuts are. Probably most people that are younger wouldn't know, but that's what he calls her. And when she doesn't have an answer, she just gets really snarky, or she turns it into a hot button thing about like, how dare you say something about a minority or a woman, and the guy's not even asking that, but she'll turn it around to that, like to shut him down. I've seen that. Well,
yeah,
Dave says about Nancy Pelosi robot malfunction.
yeah,
And I love Zach's comment here. As Penn Jillette said years ago, before he went Democrat, I'm not stealing pie from you, I'm giving pie to me.
yeah.
That's a good comment. True, though, right?
Hmm.
This is what it seems to be. If you don't see, it's almost like if a tree fell in the forest, did it, and no one was hit there, did anybody really hear it? Did it make a sound? That's kind of the same analogy that they're kind of using, right? Like if I don't see it or I don't acknowledge it, or I say that it is the way it is, regardless of what footage exists or people that say that it exists, because I, being in power, did not acknowledge it, it does
Right.
not exist, right?
That's his favorite stuff. Like, come on, man. That's not what's going on. Come on, man. That's not
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
Like, it's so ridiculous, and I find it so amazing when because I watch everything. I watch both sides of everything going
Hmm.
on there, and even I dread watching CNN stuff, and it just it
Oh.
it's so it's so taxing on the brain to listen to people talk retarded, and
Hmm.
it's just unbelievable. And not saying that whatever side, because I don't get to vote on politics in the U.S., but I do get to observe them from afar. And if you were actually looking at this and say take your political affiliations out of the mix and just listen to these people talk about topics without picking the side that they're talking on and their facts and stuff like that, you should be shaking your head going, what are you people even talking about? Like nobody's getting anything right.
Mm-hmm.
And just pushing party lines. That's why it's so important with voting and stuff like that. Is don't vote side, vote person, and that's going to help you because, like we said, like I've said before, anyways, is like with politics, right? When it's small town politics, it helps the small town because that's what it's focused on. As you move up the political ladder, the reason you get into power is to benefit yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
You don't like something that's going on around there. You're trying to the betterment of yourself. Small town, you're betterment yourself and your little community around. As you get bigger up, you're mostly benefiting yourself, your family, your friends, the company that's giving you money to be in power, and you don't care about the little small town people anymore. And you can
Mm-hmm.
hear this in all these federal politicians. Period. When they're speaking that they're doing the betterment for across the board, across the country. Well, you're not thinking about the individual areas like through North America, Canada, the U.S., and stuff like that, from coast to coast, north and south. The spectrum of what's going on in the country is totally different. New York is totally different from what's going on in Iowa. Same thing as the Thunder Bay is different than what's going on in Toronto or going in Vancouver and or the Maritimes. I'm losing my headphones here, but that's a thing that that I guess people don't sort of look at. They think that what's good over here is good for the rest of the population, and that's not actually a truth that should be out there or something that should be considered when you're looking at voting, whether it is small town or big town.
Well, that's true, but I don't know. And I'm not trying to be pessimistic, but I can honestly tell you in our last election that I don't think it mattered what you voted. I really don't. It was already called before the polls were even closed. And I know that I asked here in Ontario when I went and voted, were we using the Dominion voting machines? And I was assured that the votes were being counted by hand. I have talked to people from various other places, big cities, small cities across Canada. They were told the same. And the election was called. The Mr. JT and the Sunshine Band proclaimed himself the winner before the polls had closed on the far west province of British Columbia. So if all these votes were being hand counted, I don't know, how'd you count yourself a winner, right?
Yeah, well, I think that was part of the opinion poll and part of everything that are happening because you got to look through Canada. The biggest part of the
Hey,
population
Shannon.
is through Quebec and through Ontario. So when it gets out to the west, there's only got really is BC and a little bit of Alberta to worry about because Manitoba and Saskatchewan, their population is pretty low compared to Southern Ontario or Montreal area.
Well, then you have a differing opinion than me, but I think you're caught between a rock and a hard place in my views, because if you don't vote, you don't have a right to say anything. But when you vote, does your vote really count, or is it already pre-decided?
Yep. Well, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know about that one.
He doesn't want
I
to
think it's
open the.
important.
It's
I think
important
it's
what?
important. I think it's important anyways to be aware of like you said, is that if you don't vote, you don't have an opinion. So
Yeah, you still have to. You still have to. I agree, because yeah, you don't have a right to say anything if you don't at least go and take the time to have that civil liberty that a lot of, there's still people in the world that don't have that right. So, hey Shannon, nice to see you. Welcome. And we got Dave. We can vote and then work to change the system. I agree. I agree, but you know what? And maybe I'm getting pessimistic in my old age, but I think what happens is we do get people that want to go in there and make a change. But then, depending, like you said, though, I think it's important, like you said, to vote for the person versus the party. And the other thing is that there are people that do really want to make a change. But when you go up against the system, you got to go with what the party line is, or you end up going independent. And we do. I know here in Canada we've got people that have had to go independent. They've been kicked out because they they're standing up for the constituents and the
well,
people. So
they've
there
gone
are.
against. they've gone against the party,
Mm-hmm.
and they've been, and
Mm-hmm.
that's why I said it's important to vote for the person,
Mm-hmm.
because we've had that show here in Canada there where people have gone against their party, and it's, and that's the thing, is that it's when you see this has been such a, like, there hasn't been such this government involvement in person in people's lives since the wars, when there was the draft and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that happening, where the government forced service, right? And so now we have here with this pandemic that's happened, is that now we have governments and agencies working for the governments mandating, in a way, or strongly suggesting, I guess is just the word to say, uh, that you follow what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And I've said this many times. This is when you go to get when there's something important going on in your health and stuff like that, and you go see a doctor. Sometimes you go and get a second and a third opinion. You just
Mm-hmm.
don't go and see one. And there's, why do you think there's specialists in certain things, but not all specialists agree with each other? And
Mm-hmm.
it's been this really weird, uh, I guess, view, the climate of populists that have just gone and taken the words of the party in power, especially here in Canada, saying, well, trust our doctors. Don't trust
Mm-hmm.
your doctors, or don't trust other doctors. Don't trust any other information but the information we're giving you,
Mm-hmm.
because we have your best interest at heart. And I hear a lot of people, like, even with at work and stuff like that, I hear what they're talking about and saying, and I just sit back. I'm not saying anything. I just started here at this new job. I don't want to ruffle feathers, but I'm just like, wow, I just can't believe that you think that way. That you think
Mm-hmm.
that people like this, you wholeheartedly trust a stranger more
Mm-hmm.
than doing your own research and getting second opinions.
Well, I'm going to read a few comments. We've got Shannon, Casey, Dave Petrella. So, hi, Shannon. I'm going to read your comment in a sec. And Dave Petrella says we can vote and then work to change the system. Zach Mann says exercising your right to vote also gives you a de facto right to bitch. Agreed. And then Shannon says, I'm in Grand Marais with my hubby. Hi, Sean. How's it going? He's very happy with your conversation. And Sean, I hope you're doing well. Poor guy had a major accident because they drive
Oh,
back
was
and
he?
forth from Thunder Bay. So he's okay, I believe, but get better there. I know I saw your picture when you were in the emergency room. So thank goodness you're okay. But thank you for listening, tuning in tonight, guys. Um, you know what? It's hard. It's really hard. I don't usually. I try to keep my mouth shut when I don't agree with how somebody else thinks. Now the reason why is exactly kind of what you just said, though. That just because I have an opinion on something and the way I feel and the way I think doesn't necessarily mean the other person's wrong. They
Hmm.
might be spouting a lot of misinformation, maybe that they've read or what they've done that I believe is pretty well commonplace. For example, that you can see, or you can prove whatever it may be. But I always say I don't need to be right. I don't need to prove other people wrong. Same thing with the truth that I believe to be the truth. I don't try to cram it down people's throats. I really don't, because all it does is it ends up creating a divide and separation. And, I end up talking to a lot of different people, but because of the people they love so much, they just keep throwing this information and throwing this information and throwing this information at them. And then people are like, please stop sending me stuff. Please stop sending me stuff because they don't want to hear it. They don't want to see it. And then they're heartbroken about it. And I try to explain to them that that's your truth. That's your
Hmm.
truth. That's what you believe. That's what you can see. But the
It's,
more you,
it's almost like somebody that was a smoker that quit smoking, and then starts
yes,
going around to the people that are still smoking and start
mm-hmm,
preaching
mm-hmm,
the
yeah,
benefits of stop smoking, or somebody that just
mm-hmm,
finds religion and
mm-hmm.
comes out there and starts, hey, I got a pamphlet for you. Hey, have you heard about God? Like
Have you heard about
those,
Jesus?
yeah, and people that butt into conversations
Mm-hmm,
that they were never involved in, and say start giving their opinion on something. uh, I hate people like that. That's why like when I know it's best to listen. I think people need to
Yes.
listen a little bit more and be aware of the climate of people and what their views are around you. And just it's not about being quiet and not saying anything, but
Mhm.
you don't need to go and voice your opinion over top of everybody else and think that what you have to say is correct or what you
Mhm.
believe is correct, because there might be actually something out of that that might be wrong out of it. Not, I'm not saying wrong, or might not, you might not have all the facts in it. And I'm not just saying for just what's going on in this view of thought during this pandemic, but you just don't need to cram things down people's
No,
minds
and
and
I think you
throats.
hit the nail on the head there with we have to listen, I think. Um, listen more. Plus, the thing is, it's not like most of this information is hidden. Like Shannon's opened a whole can of worms here, but I think it's important to mention what she said. She says Shannon's a nurse too, like I am. I'm not working with my back, but she said I work with many people who are unemployed now because they couldn't get the jab. They can't find a doctor to sign a form to say they can't have it. Apparently, doctors have been told they can't sign the forms. They could lose their license. And you said, I love difference of opinions. It drives change. Sometimes it does, Shannon, but I got to be honest with you with what's going on right now. I don't think it will because, you know, Dell and I talk about this often. And again, we could be totally wrong about this, but I think it's just human nature that whatever's in your own personal bubble, and I'm going to use this topic, which is kind of neutral, is autism, for example. We live, eat, breathe, and sleep it every day. Okay. 35, 40 years ago, it was 1 in 10,000 boys that was diagnosed with autism. Right now, depending on where you live, it is between 1 in 38 and 1 in 52 children diagnosed. They are projecting that in 10 years from now, one in every second child will be born with the diagnosis of autism. Now, unless you live with that or it's part of your world, you're not going to think about it. And that's human nature because there's too many bloody things to think about. I mean, if we sat there and worried about every single issue in the world, I mean, I don't think we'd get anything done. I think we'd be paralyzed practically from the amount of the weight of the world, if you will. So, what happens, I find, even with this information that's out there now, with what you're talking about, is people are afraid to step up and to say something because they lose their livelihoods if they do. Second of all, I have yet to meet anybody, and again, I don't meet everybody in the world. I don't know, you can maybe speak up on your opinion or anybody else in the chat room, that if you have a discussion and a difference of an opinion, that you've actually met somebody that has changed your whole field of thought regarding what's going on in the world right now by having an open, calm conversation, actually listening to each other.
Hmm.
I have yet to meet anybody that has changed their opinion. Have you?
Well, some people have like changed their mind on certain things, but I just want to say the one part that I agree with Shannon says yes, I like difference of opinion and I like open debate in that, but I like the part about this, and I think this is the important part. If I've been invited into the conversation and the debate, not
Agreed.
injecting myself into somebody else's. That was the point that I was making, and I think we see a lot of this happening on social media, where someone will have an opinion and then there'll be a swarm of people that disagree and will
Mhm.
just come through, and that this was uh, the whole part of this cancel culture. Somebody says it has something, and then this whole mob of SJW or whatever group that comes in there, and they just swarm in and go, "We don't agree with you. We want you canceled. We want you banned. We want you out of here." And you're seeing this happen in the school systems up here too, with kids going to school with the jabbed and unjabbed, and with teachers and teachers unions having this going on with the police departments, fire departments, the main part of the safety of the infrastructure. And there you have a group of people saying one thing, and you have another group of people saying this is an infringement on my personal health and rights. And they're all both valid points and stuff like that. I will always find it sort of interesting is that before this even happened, if you go back a decade, two decades, even more than that, when you went to go to foreign countries and stuff like that, there was certain things that you took. like Twinrex for hepatitis if you're going to uh,
Mm-hmm.
Mexico or going down into work in the islands. Because I know there was one there. I was supposed to work in Barbados or something like that, and you had to get certain shots before you went in there, and that was just or going to Africa. When my mom went to Africa, she had to get a certain amount of shots there for certain mosquito diseases and stuff like that, and whatever else that was there. And that's just for certain health aspects and stuff like that. But now you have this that came in with this part here, and it the science is out on it. I don't care if you want to say the science is in. The science is not out. The testing has been not been done to fruition on this. We don't know what long-term results are, and there's questions that are out there. And for one person to say this is the end-all, be-all that everybody must get this is a wrong way of thinking. And one medicine doesn't work for everybody. That's maybe the point that I'm saying.
Well, I think Shannon said herself. She said for it did work for her. She said I was educated and it changed my thought process. But it was my, there you go, Shannon. I was just going to add that and you typed that. But it was myself and another adult having a conversation and you
Mm-hmm.
learned. But you maybe you were ready at that point, or maybe there were some things that you have to be ready to have that conversation. Like Zach, I got to agree with you, but I'm going to add something to this. She said, I used to get that a lot from many people on my page who would swarm me. Then with when I would say something they disagree with, that's when I would show them that I'm no pushover. Okay, but this is the point, and I talk about this lots on my show. And there's a anagram that I'll post on my page from time to time too that says think. And it talks about social media, and the T stands for is it thoughtful? H, is it helpful? I is it informative? N, is it needed? And K, is it kind? Okay? Because there's times people decide. I know people that practically post when they wipe their butt on there. I don't know why they choose to do that, but for whatever reason, not my job to judge. But this is the problem I have, and I try to be very careful what I post because there's nothing wrong with showing people that you're no pushover, Zach. But the problem is then it ends up in this major a fight. I've seen major fights. I've had people I've had to block because they think it's their right to go on my Facebook profile, something I've decided to share, and they've got to put. I have somebody on my friends list right now that does this all the time, has an opinion, has to put something in there. I didn't put that up there for you to spew your word vomit all over the place and what you think and what your thoughts are. That's what your page is for. That's what I feel like. You know what? There's a delete button, there's a swipe function. Just swipe right on by if you don't agree with it. But that's not what's happened in this culture today. And that's why I tend to try and just stay, like, I'll share our shows, or I'll try and share something funny, or maybe something craft wise or whatever. Otherwise, I stay away from this stuff because I don't want to waste my time or energy having to argue with people and defend myself. To me, and again, this, I know the world doesn't look at it this way. There's a reason why it's called your profile page. To me, that's kind of like your own doorstep, if you will. People, want to decorate the doorstep, whatever it is, put whatever they want out there. But it doesn't give everybody the right. Say if you decide you want to put your election sign, we'll put on your front door, on your doorstep or your lawn. That doesn't give everybody the right to go on your property and say deface your sign or be yelling at you and calling you names, whatever it is. I know it's not quite the same thing, but what I'm saying is, when did it become okay for people to go on other people's social media profiles and exactly what you said, Del, just jump like the mob mentality? And it's like, why? Why? Don't you have something better to do? Like, go use your own profile. Post. That's how I feel. Use your own profile. Post whatever you want. But leave me alone. That's kind of how I just feel. I don't know. You've gotten into some arguments yourself. I know you have. But you usually try to stay out of them, but it happens,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's true. It says, I look at it this way: is that I got so much time left on this earth. I don't need to go waste it on frivolous
Exactly.
and useless things. You know what? I'm not going to argue to convince somebody anymore. I don't.
Mm-mm.
This is why I says this is the facts that are out there. This is the information that I got. Do the rest of the research yourself and come to your own conclusion. That's what the whole show, The Delicious Recipe, is. We throw lots of thought, lots of ideas into the pot and see how it tastes at the end. Whether you like the taste or not, that's up to you. Whether you want to go and add your own flavors to it, you can go ahead and do that. But
Mhm.
maybe you'll get some sort of new understanding, or maybe a new thought bubble will open your eyes to something else, and you can go with that. But
Mhm.
see, we've come to this part, and I think with our technology, that we become lazy, and so
Oh, really?
we only take the first 10 hits that
Mhm.
come off of when we do a search, and we don't
Mhm.
go through further down the page and get differencing of opinions, and we don't go and do any more research. Instead of, well, this is the most trusted source, so I'm going to believe this one, right?
Mhm.
You can't do that. Well, if you
Well,
want to do it, you
I
can do
learned
it,
that.
but
I learned that from you though, because when this was first all beginning, and I can honestly say he was watching CNN and I walked in and I said, "What the heck are you watching this crap in not such a radio friendly way?" I said to him, and he goes, "Laura, we got to look at everything. We got to know what everybody's putting out there, what everybody's saying." And he's right. He's right. And you just keep thinking what a different world we would be in if people would just take the time to listen to one another. And I don't think I'm asking for utopia here, but I think we've lost the real art of listening. Not hearing, but listening. Sitting there and actually hearing what somebody has to say, thinking about it, and before we jump right on top of it, that we actually digest it a little bit and have, like you said, Shannon, I think the word you use is an adult conversation where we hear each other. We don't have to agree. But this is how, say, Sean, I'll use Sean, say, this is how Sean feels, but this is how I feel, or this is how you feel. We hear each other, so maybe we can kind of understand where people are coming from using logic and reasoning. I've always said that since 2020, we've had the loss of many things, but critical thinking and logic. And
yeah,
I think listening too, like hearing people, and we can agree to disagree. That's okay. Like Shannon
yeah,
added, Sean always types in capitals. It's a habit he formed in the military. People forever comment on him yelling at them. We live in a society who get offended by the way someone types. And I agree.
mhm.
You know what?
When
Yes,
I was,
that's what I
I was
try and
gonna,
take it when people type. Sorry, I was just going to add this, Del. That's what I never comment on it because I figure exactly what you just said there, Shannon. Maybe they didn't know differently, or for whatever reason. So what if they're typing in capitals? Go ahead, Del.
yeah, I was thinking about that as you were thinking, talking there. I was remembering back. This has always sort of stuck with me for since, well, up to even up till now. I think it was like a grade 10 history, and this is the whole part about we were doing debates,
Mm-hmm.
and we were getting in the whole part about debating, and we were given a topic, and they just picked a room and said, now you have to debate this topic, okay, and to prove that you were right. Right. So it even a topic that you didn't agree with, but you wanted to win, right? You had to win. So you went through this whole part of this debate. You went and found out all the information you could on to find out how you could win this debate. And then she did a turn on this. Is that after we did this, that we had the debate? They had to debate the other side of the argument.
Oh God. Okay.
So now you had
Mm-hmm.
to go and debate it so that you could win against the other part. And this is the whole part about. I think more people should be looking at this. This is the whole part about looking at it from both sides, or
I think
looking at it
it's
from all
important.
sides.
Mm-hmm.
Find out what part of not what part, find out all the parts of the art of the conversation that's going on, and find the pros and cons for how you could win the debate on both sides, and then come up with your conclusion from there. You see this with the media, you see this with government, stuff like that. They're only debating the one side that benefits them. That they're not looking at the others, or they're refusing to give the rest of the information, which would excuse me, which would contradict what they're saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
That, that's
Mm-hmm.
that's maybe a way to look at it too, and that's why I say that by doing your own research and looking at this and getting all the information in, you can yourself be as happy as you can be that you've gotten all the information, you made your own justified conclusion and answer to yourself that you found that, but also be open to when new information comes in, see how
Yes.
that affects
Mm-hmm.
the the conclusion that you had from the previous information. It's never a, a stop finality to what's going on. You have to keep on taking in new more information that's coming in. It's like you don't stop learning because you graduated school. You
Mm-hmm.
should be learning all the time and finding out what's going on around you. And that's the thing. I don't know,
Or
the
changing your.
quiet listener is the one that's probably more smarter than the person that's talking over top of people.
It's the reason why they say still waters run deep, and I think you're right. I know you do. I know I do. We try and learn something new every day. I'll be learning till the day I die. I know you will. But but the point is here is you made this point earlier too, is that you're right about this. It was something to do with cancel culture. Sorry, my brain's losing its train of thought here. With this, oh, I know what it was about, and we've seen this happen. Still never. Dell likes to, or used to like to watch Big Brother over in the UK, and there was this young girl. What was she? Maybe 16, 17 years old, and all of a sudden she got called into production after being there for a week or two, and it was about some tweets she had made 5 or 6 years earlier. This kid was probably 10 or 11 years old when she made these tweets. Were they right? Probably not. Were they politically correct? Probably not. My first question was, what the heck was she doing on social media making tweets like that? Like, I don't know. I wasn't judging her, but did you not maybe have any parental supervision or, somebody to help properly guide you? But second of all, it was very clear that she was nowhere near at that point anymore at the stage of 16, 17 years old as she was 5 years previous. And I think it was an important lesson for all of us to look at is look at yourself from 5 years ago. Do you have the same views? Do you believe exactly everything you believed back then? Did you? And none of us, I think, could say yes. Because if we do, I mean, again, not my job to judge, but I would like to think that most of us learn, we grow, we evolve. Wouldn't you?
Yep, that's the important part there. That's what the whole part of that you said at the beginning part about
Mm-hmm.
taking comments that you made 20, 30 years ago and
Mm-hmm.
applying it today, that's the way you still think today. Maybe some people do, who knows? Like some people do get stuck in the
Mm-hmm.
70s or the 80s, as the saying goes, and that's all they believe, and they believe it should be that. They've never, I guess, took
Not
in
going to
anything
change.
more. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And but the thing is, that's why I said that's why this cancel culture, that's their weapon of choice,
Mm-hmm.
is to go in and dig in and then to discount you as an opinion that maybe actually be relevant. That's a weapon. Like you got to think about when we're talking about weapons of war and we're talking about like social media is, and this has been used through governments, through elections and stuff like that, has been a weapon of technology against people that don't think the same way. And you gotta look at it. The freedom that we thought that we had, that was all a big illusion. Like it truly is. When you look at things like they say, oh yeah, Canada is free, home of the brave. You got the states saying freedom and stuff like that, and then you actually look at what is going on and how much freedom that you have and things that are being taken away, and you have to really start to look at it and go, huh, are we actually as free as we actually think we are? Because
Sorry.
I know we're not here in Canada when you have
Mm-hmm.
a tyrannical government here and a person that idolizes Xi Jinping there from China and wants thinks that Canada should be more like China or China, and
Mm-hmm.
who knows, that'll probably be coming on here in the next 4 years. The way things are
Yes.
going.
Yeah, including that I never really got involved in politics. I never did, never wanted to. I've been more politically involved in the last probably 2 years than I ever have in my entire life. But now's the time to get involved. But the thing is, I think that a lot of people, depending on where you are in life and what age, you don't look at these things, you don't think about it. And I think what's happened, the younger generations make us sound like we're ancient, but even us growing up, we didn't really understand what our forefathers went through. There's World War II, World War One. You know, you've seen the occasional film, you learned about history, whatever. But as time evolves, you know, like let's use Don Cherry, for example. I mean, you know, he made a comment. It's a little bit colorful, but we are supposed to be able to speak our minds. He wasn't pointing out, you know, it wasn't a racist comment. It got turned into a racist comment. And he was talking about our poppy and, you know, people that are enjoying the freedoms, immigrating to our country. And I forget exactly the wording of it, but he was pulled off a hockey night in Canada. He was canceled. I mean, he's of the age that he would remember probably a father or somebody coming back from the war and what they went through and what all these people have lost. And that's a thing I don't think people realize. I understand that in the US, people are much more um, cognizant of
Patriotic.
your, yes, thank you, much more cognizant and patriotic with your military. But here, like I know I can only speak for Canada, and people have no idea. I think when it comes for us, it's November the 11th. I think even on November the 11th, I posted that poem called Flanders Field and why we have the poppy and stuff. But I think that people forget what at what cost, you know, we have the freedoms that we have nowadays and how sacred these really are around the world, and that we need to be pulling together and fighting for this regardless of what your views are, because I don't know, I think we're in real danger of losing a lot of these freedoms unless people start to stand together regardless of what your thoughts are. We're the human race, like we need to stand together, because like you said, we're talking about Mr. JT and the Sunshine Band, and you start looking at some of these bills he's putting in. I mean, they're going to control what we can see on the internet, what we can say. I mean, we're even getting into Minority Report here with part of this bill. Of if somebody decides that they're worried that somebody might say something against them that might constitute hate speech, you could end up with jail time and a massive fine. And I'll bet you how many people know about that unless you really look into that. And they probably think, oh, that'll never happen. That'll never happen, right? It's
Yep,
happening. It's
that's what I
happening.
said before. There's boiling the frog slowly. Like every
Mm-hmm.
little bit there comes on, and then you wonder why why you're at the point that you're at the point. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I've been following along with my show as well, and even doing stuff with you too, is that you're seeing all these small little changes that are happening, but
Mm-hmm.
they're all going to culminate to a big change at the end. And like they don't want to keep on harping about this Agenda 2030 and this great reset that's happening, but this is little steps that are happening. When you're looking about being charged for carbon and carbon footprints, these are all little parts of the big change that's happening here. And it's I don't know, it's I've looked at this just through my lifetime, my 51 years, and that's the best way that I can give you the stuff that I've seen,
Mm-hmm.
and whether you've seen this out there as well. But things that you used to be able to do, some things that you don't do anymore, which are
They're
good
good.
that
Mm-hmm.
you're not doing. That people aren't changing their oil on the streets and dumping it down the sewer drains. That's a good change. That or dumping their paint down their toilets or stuff like that and putting it into the into the sewer system. Just things like that. These are all good changes in that, but other changes that have been happening with regulations and mandates and stuff like that that are going on, restricting freedoms, restricting travel, restricting what businesses can do, hours of operation, amount of people that can be in there. Now you're infringing on individual business owner rights and personal freedoms that government should not have any point about. Government should be the quiet thing that takes care of infrastructure, makes care of the country safe, makes our natural resources beneficial. You build up the populace, you make the country that you're in there great, and you make it better for the people who are there. You don't destroy the country and then inundate it with more people that that don't benefit the country either, and you just make the country a toilet. I don't know. This, you don't fix you don't give away the stuff in your house to fix the house down the road, and then you wonder why you don't have a house to live in.
Yes, yes. Actually, Shanna had a good point. She said people need to learn to respect one another. Respect means everything. It does. It really, really does. And I think that I don't know what the solution is because this is creating more and more divide. And I think people, I've seen certain lives I've been in, people get really angry when they hear people talking about Canada becoming like a communist country. And the same with Australia. Australians were very much like we were, with Canada, with freedoms, pretty laid back, well liked people around the world. And what they are going through, I mean, whatever happens there seems to eventually come here. I can't even believe it. And I have quite a few friends in Australia, and there's still people that are so terrified they're afraid to even go get their hair cut because they're believing. Like I said, I don't know what the answer is, but I'm telling you guys, it concerns me because, like I said, we don't have to agree, but we're stronger united than we are divided. And if we could just see that alone, I think the fact that this is creating division and it doesn't need to. It doesn't need to. And again, I don't know how else to get the message across, or enough people to hear that or see that. I don't know. Have you got any great solutions at all, or anybody in there in the chat that you've thought of that might help make a difference?
I don't know. I just thinking about that when you started mentioning about Australia, and I can remember this back in the 90s. A friend of mine papers at the Nor'wester, and she was going to be moving to Australia, and she tried to get in there before,
Hmm.
and the process about going in there, she was refused. She
Hmm.
couldn't get in there because she didn't have a desirable skill that they needed, and she wasn't uh, married to or have any relatives that
Yeah,
were there, right?
right.
She could go and visit, but she couldn't stay there,
Yeah.
and she wanted to move to Australia for some reason. She was in love with it, so I think it was about like 2 years later she got engaged and she was marrying an Australian, and
Hmm.
that's the way that she got into the country, right? And now you
Hmm.
look at the way that countries are now. Australia is still different. That's off to the point, but if you look at here in Canada, our government, JT and his Sunshine Band group, have opened the floodgates and allowed anybody to come in. Well, same in the States too as well. Where it used to be is that, like, for me to go and move down into the States, to go and get citizenship like that, you have to give some sort of documentation. You have to go through a huge process, and then also about what skills are you going to be bringing down there for a reason that you wanted
Well,
to go and
Shannon can probably vouch for that because
right
she's from
that you
Thunder
wanted
Bay.
to
Hmm.
leave the country and become a citizen of another country. That you have to, there's a process that you actually go through besides the part of marrying someone that lives there, right? Because that's
Hmm.
a totally different thing. That's a way to, but you look at what's happened here in Canada and the States, was that we just opened the floodwaters to this whole thing. And I think this is part of the George Soros OSF part there, and with people that he's put into power where they've opened the floodgates, is that we're taking in refugees. The term refugee has been an asylum people, right? Everybody's leaving some place of tyranny, so they're seeking asylum in the U.S. or in Canada, and I think that term has been blatantly falsified in the meaning of what it is for people to get into other countries, because to go live somewhere else, uh, I found to go through the process is
Oh,
open the door free willy nilly, and then you have to look at how the change in the country has happened. Uh, just even in Canada, we had a sort of a national pride, and nowadays now is it's almost we support everything else, and Canada comes last out of the part about being Canadian. It's
hmm.
all about being whatever you want to say, wherever you came from,
Hmm.
Africa, Europe, South America, whatever country, China, stuff like that. That takes precedence over being what the identity of the country you've gone
We've
into.
got some good comments here too. Dave Petrella says it's a poison in the food, guys. It prevents the mind from even being logical and decent. I agree, as well as our air quality. everywhere, our water, everything. And then he also says everybody's in defense mode 24/7 because the cells in the body are chronically toxic. That actually makes a lot of sense. And then Shannon says, my thought is people still have faith in our political leaders. Absolutely. Our leaders now are not what our leaders were 30 years ago. The agendas are now very different. I don't know about that here in Canada because JT's daddy was in power a little bit more than 30 years ago. Now, the scary part for us in Canada here is there is no length of term. His father was in power for 27, 28
7.
years. 27? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least in the US, you guys, or many of the other places in the world, you guys get them for what, 4, maybe 8 years. We get them for ever until somehow we get them out. That's the scary part. But I do have to agree with you, Dave, a little bit about that because, when you look at air quality, when you look at the water, when you look at things that we need to sustain ourselves, yeah, that would make a lot of sense because if the body is toxic, it's almost in a place of inflammation from what it's sustaining itself with. You're in that fight or flight, state. So I could see that. I
That
don't.
actually comes into a part of a conspiracy part with the chemicals that have been put into our foods and stuff like that, and then with the increased amount of Wi-Fi, I guess you would say, aerial electronic radiation that's going through there, that's actually
Mhm.
toxifying people, and this big push to move people into big cities where you can inundate them with more signals being around there in a more condensed area would be a sort of a conclusion you could sort of almost come to. This why people are so angry and so toxic in bigger cities than they are in rural areas where there's more fresh air and
Mhm.
less electronic frequencies being bombarded at you. Just a theory out there, not a I shouldn't say conclusion, a theory that's been sort of been passed around for a little bit.
I'm sorry, you on Twitter there, you archive. This isn't my Narcotics Anonymous meeting. It most certainly isn't. So you're welcome to stay, but nope, that's not what we're talking about. Dave says he agrees with both of you guys. For example, this needs to be on my phone. Crystal Shingite. It's not going to save with the UMF or UMF EMF. I'm seeing you on the U archive here, or unarchive. I think it says no U archive. Sorry, but it helps absorb it. But yeah, we are in a lot of toxic stuff. I'm another thing that I don't know how I didn't know this, and it's not that I think the world revolves around autism. I don't. I said we live with it. It's in our bubble. But I just realized, did you guys know this? That now again, I am not pro or anti jab. I'm not. That's not why I'm bringing this up. But in the Amish community, they have no cases practically. I believe it's none from what I've heard and the research I've done. There are zero cases of autism in their communities, and there's very few cases of cancer as well. So that's some food for thought. So they're not using all the modern conveniences that we're doing. They're growing their own food. They're making their own food. So did UFOs cause AIDS? No, I don't think so, but it could be some food for thought, depending, I guess, maybe the inhabitants in there. I don't know. That's a whole different conversation there, Mr. or Miss U Archive. You'd
Hmm.
have to do, as you just joined the conversation now, but as we've been saying right from the beginning, you got to do your own research. So I guess, and then make your own conclusion. Dave added they make their own food, meaning the Amish, and he said natural, real food. Hmm. They also don't use a lot of modern Western medicine, nor Eastern either. Ah, you archive said. Hmm. You're welcome, though, to join the conversation. And I'm glad that you joined us. So we're just talking about kind of what's going on in the world a little bit. We got Leroy Majors. Where is the best place to gain information? Where do we research? I've got places we want to add. Thank you for asking, Leroy Majors. Thanks for joining us off of Twitter as well. So Leroy's asking, what are your thoughts, Del? And I've got a few as well.
Yeah, well, I do a lot of web searches. like usually when I go and say if I'm researching a topic and that, I just
Not Google.
no, you can use well. There's a funny thing about Google too, but I think I talked about that last week. But how their web searches when they say a billion finds or a billion hits, but when you get
Oh, we
down to
talked
like
about this,
page
yeah.
page 40, that there's no more, right?
Mm-hmm.
That there's you only get to about 700 things
Mm-hmm.
there. That's the whole. There's like a whole theory about the internet dark or the internet web. The information out there is pretty much dead, and that they're only supplying you with just a fraction of what's out there. And there's so many URL sites that are actually inactive, and that even though that they're saying they are right, there's that the information isn't out there. But the biggest thing that I do is I see if there's a topic that I'm researching in is I just go circuit as much stuff that is out there. I start at the top. Usually I skip the first six because they say ads with them, and then start just going through every single page and just finding links. And I check out independent news stories, not uh, YouTube stuff that you can get from there. Just even internet stuff, different sites, and start writing down links and start reading about them,
Okay, so my
watching them.
suggestions. Okay, well, my suggestions would be, if you're asking, Google has its place, but I would definitely use a different search engine,
Yep.
something like DuckDuckGo.
Hmm.
Take a look. The problem is DuckDuckGo has a lot of limitations too, though. So with some of the stuff you're joining the conversation a little bit late, Leroy, but I think you got to take a look at everything. Did you know the FBI searches Twitch and YouTube? This is Irish Snugs on Twitch. Yeah, yes, we do. And so do many other law enforcement, as well as Facebook and everything else. So you put it out on the internet, it's there forever, and anybody can search it. So just so you're aware of that, it's not just Twitch and YouTube. Um, so I would definitely suggest using different search engines, and it depends what you're looking for too when you ask Leroy. So if you're looking, again, you're joining the conversation a little bit later, but what Dell and I were talking about is I think we need to take a look at everything. So you need to look at some of the things that you may have heard, maybe fake news. You need to hear what they're saying. Then take a look at some independent news sources, depending on where you live. I know Joe Montaldo, who owns a network. We've talked about this, him and I, off air and on air, that a lot of times you can find out what's going on in your own country and other people's news in other countries, believe it or not.
Yep, that's
Um,
that's a, that's an important one there. Yeah, because I watch a lot of Australian and European
mhm.
news and stuff from South America, and you can get stuff with subtitles and that, which is important. Then you find out what they're actually talking about your country. That's a good point there.
It's a
I
really
do
good
do a lot of
point.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a friend, Augie Nost or Noost, that has been on here, and he speaks 7 languages, and that's one of his things. So take a look in other countries, because believe it or not, depending on where you are, you'll find out more information. There's a lot of great documentaries out there. There's a lot of things like BitChute, not yeah, BitChute, Rumble, really good places. Gab too.
Odyssey.
Odyssey, they're all different and they're not censored, so you can kind of get a flavor of what people's thoughts are out there. And again, the more information you get, and again, you're joining us a bit late, we talked about this earlier, but then take a look at what you see, what resonates with you, what doesn't, and see what your thoughts are after you hear what other people have to say. There's
Mhm.
research papers out there. Again, use a discerning eye with those because not everything is what it says it is. And how we
Mhm.
started the conversation out tonight, we're in Canada. There was a document that supposedly was leaked from our government, our federal government, that our news is saying is it's been debunked. Now, the one thing about Canada, and depending on where you live, in Canada, all of our news is 100% government funded, unless it's independent news. So do with it what you will. So we
Right. And
know.
another part that I want to say there while you're going with that is
Hmm.
uh, Wikipedia
Hmm.
is
Oh, yes, please mention it.
edited
Yes.
by the people.
Hmm.
Okay, so it is not. Uh, there is some information that's there for most parts, but anybody can edit it. So
Mhm.
that's a part that people should remember about that. So just don't take what you when because I hear this so many times. You hear millennials and new people saying, "Well, I wikied it. It's
Mhm.
the truth." It says, "Well,
Mm.
no, no, it's not. I can go on Wikipedia right now and change any text that's on there, and it'll stay there until the next person changes it." So
Unless you are a controversial person. I'm going to pick
right,
somebody, for example, like Dr. Judy Mikovits. She is blocked out of her own Wikipedia page to edit her own page. And there are other pages. Actually, somebody sent me something from Wiki this weekend, and when I went on there, I got this big thing about donating, and then I got a second warning about donating, and then a third that was going to. And I used a couple different devices. I thought, is this a virus? And it wasn't. That they were reporting me to Apple, that they wanted me to, like, they really want money to keep this page going. I've been seeing this for a while on different devices and stuff, so I know it's not a virus, but Wikipedia, and again, it has its place. Where I like to use Wikipedia, if you really want to know, is I go down to the very bottom of the page where all the references are. And that's
mhm.
where I do a deep dive as I start going through the references and start reading where they got the information from. Does it
And the
resonate
person
with
who's
me?
saying it too.
Yep. hmm Research the person that wrote it too.
Yeah.
So, because that'll give you some information, but keep an open mind. There's a lot of great documentaries too, depending on what you're looking for. So,
Well, that was one
um,
big thing that I've been watching probably in the last sort of 10 years is documentaries. And
mhm,
I never really watched documentaries before, and I get a
mhm,
lot of information that's out of there. But at the end, when it goes to the credits,
yeah,
you can go there, and that's the most important part of the whole documentary right there is
mhm.
the bibliothèque or the references or
Bibliography.
bibliography,
Mhm,
just all the reference points, and then who produced it, who wrote it, and
mhm.
then go and check up on that person, and you can find out a lot of information about them, what they stand for, what they believe in.
Two other
Uh,
things that I wanted to add quickly before I forget. Sorry, Della, is
yeah,
if
that
you're in a
sorry.
live, read the comments especially, but always read the comments. You will find all kinds of links in there usually that you might not normally find. There was one more. Sorry, go ahead. I'll probably remember it in a minute here. Go ahead.
No, it's just saying that out of this part of when you're saying where do you get your information from or where do you do your
Hmm
research, that's the one thing. There's you have to spend some time. And I know a lot of people say, well, they're pressed for time, they don't have time to do stuff, but a lot of people have a lot of time to comment on things, but with information that they haven't researched. So
hmm
I guess that's sort of a little
So, like I said,
jab.
look at the comments that people make. A lot of people share a lot of stuff, especially on a live. A lot of people share great things. Telegram's a great place. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. And again, this is just my opinion, and I'm sure Dell will agree with it most of the time, that if it's been censored or it's been taken offline pretty quickly, that usually bears looking at, I'll say anyways. Why was it censored? Why?
Mhm.
Because there's usually a good reason for that. And then depending on the topic that you're looking for, Telegram's a great place to go. There is groups for everything known to God on there, and it's uncensored. Usually, I've really met some nice people on there too. It's not, and sometimes you can get into audio chats, video chats on there, have some great discussions. Sometimes you don't get the answer right away. And again, we talked about this at the beginning about lots of times I put things on the proverbial back shelf, I call it. I'm not really
And
sure
use
about
a
how.
good VPN too,
Oh,
because
yes.
content is blocked in countries,
hmm
and we found that even here. Like,
hmm
didn't this? It's been talked about, like the whole thing about using a VPN, then you can watch American Netflix shows that are unavailable in Canada. But it's not just for that. It's
hmm
even for information that comes through the internet.
hmm
What your web searches are greatly affected
Yep.
by your country origin. And even here in Canada,
hmm
I've noticed I can have two devices, one with a VPN on, one without. Type in the exact same things, hit enter, and I'll get two different lists of sites to
Information.
look at.
I wanted to
Yeah.
add this because this is a good point Dave made. He said, I listened to the 2016 presidential debate while I was in Yukon, Canada. He goes, it was the best coverage of U.S. news I've ever heard. Exactly, Dave. And I've been hearing this from more and more people. Like I said, Joe Montaldo and I were talking about this. We said we should almost put an app together with or web page with news sources from different countries, because it's almost like, say, and not so much for North America, but then again, like you said, you were in the Yukon and look what you in Canada and look what you got on US news. So it does happen, but a lot of times overseas too. Like I know, again, I'm going to use Rebel News for example. One of the guys broke a major story because he found out about it from a news source in the UK. Nobody in Canada knew about it. Nobody in the US knew about it, but they knew about it. So that's why it's important. And it doesn't have to take years and years and years. Like there's lots of, for example, I get sent all kinds of stuff. And there's a lot of chat groups that you can join that people will share stuff. They know that if you're just going to be open-minded, that you're not there to, get into drama and debates. People, as long as you're open-minded about it, people are happy to share with one another and have a discussion. There are groups out there like that do those sort of things. So it just takes a little time, feel your way around. And again, I would stay away from big tech. But everything that's out there, I don't think you can 100% dismiss. Okay, it's there for a reason. Wouldn't you agree, Del? Everything has its place.
Yeah. Well, if you think you're getting all your information from Twitter,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be in for a world of hurt in your head there for ideas, because that place has become so toxic. It's unbelievable. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I agree with most of the stuff you said. There's places out there is that you just have to put your feelers out there and look around. And the best thing to do is listen and look and listen first
Mm-hmm.
before speak and react.
Actually, Shannon had a good. Dave said that was a good idea about either a website. The app was my idea. Joe and I do. Just now that I produce my own show, that's why I was glad he popped in at the beginning. We don't get to chit chat like we used to, but we were talking about that because then it would be a great place to go where people could find their own news sources. Just if you can collate it and put it by country. But Shannon added, when Mr. T was president, I was telling my husband, who's in the US, things I was seeing in the news here in Canada that my American husband was not hearing in the US. Agreed.
Hmm.
Absolutely agreed. Hmm.
And with this new, was it Bill C-10 or
Excuse me.
C-46 or whatever with
Hmm.
Canadian that our Mr. T over here, uh, or well, I guess yeah, our I forget, yeah, she's Canadian to the US, yeah. Our JT and the Sunshine Band want to put through there is stopping media sources and anybody that is talks of negatively about the party in charge. And we mentioned this at the very beginning, is that if this stuff goes through, you can't even have a show like this where you're reporting from here in Canada, even though we go out of Louisiana,
New
New
Orleans,
Orleans
Louisiana. Yep.
radio,
Hmm.
that the train of thought where this stuff comes through, you could actually be in trouble for that. And
Hmm.
people will say, "Oh no, they won't do that." Well, that's what everybody says. Oh no, they're not going to do that. Well, look at the past 30 years, what they said that they were never going to do, and they've already done it.
Or, like I said, the leaked document from October 10th, 2020, folks. I would take a look at it. You can find it online. You just have to Google it. Leaked document from anonymous Liberal Party member, and it breaks it down per quarter. Now, somebody's just sent me from here, I think it was from the end of August, I said at the beginning of the show, to the end of October. They have pretty well done 90% to 95, I'll say, maybe even a little bit higher, what they said they were going to do. And they break it down right into spring of 2022. I hope to God those things don't come true. But it's all in that document. And if you look at it and you go back to the first quarter that they covered in this document that they leaked, they have pretty well done to the letter per time schedule that they've broken down by quarter of every year from, I think it was October 2020 till now. And it's pretty well their game plan. You'll see it. So and that was called fake too, that news, and that was not fake news. If it's fake news, then somebody was obviously very psychic if this was a fake document. So I have to say it's not a fake document. Even that you hear, something's been debunked. I don't know. We've been finding out more and more as time goes on and truth comes out that a lot of things that have been debunked, been proven untrue.
Well,
I don't know
that's
about
whole
that.
part of this. What we started off at the beginning about talking
Mhm.
about the Canadian government military propaganda
Unit.
section that they
Hmm.
put in there, and we talked about the wolves and the letter that the press produced, and Dix had looked at there too. But there's been many other things there too, and that's the so important thing about, like we said, about doing research
Hmm.
and looking at things there, is that sometimes whatever is that the magic that's going on there, this whole con job that's being done, is that okay, yeah,
Hmm.
like you said, yeah, this has been debunked, that it's not true. It actually, that was part of the magic trick, right?
Yeah.
Wagging the
Yeah.
dog over here to affect something over here.
Hmm.
Little steps put into place, just like as what's going on right now.
Hmm.
Little things that they changed in government politics, and that where they've added little parts here or for something that's up and coming later on. It's like playing chess, where they've gone and put uh, some people say it's like playing bridge, a more complex game
Hmm.
than chess is, with four people with a whole bunch of bidding wars and stuff like that. Little moves that are being made to affect something later on, right?
I have to agree because I'm going to say this out here. And now I have not checked this in the last week, but on the Canadian government, so I believe it's canada.gov.ca, if you look up G as in goat, R, E, N as in Nancy, A, D as in dog, E, S as in Sam. You look that up on the Canadian.gov, it's canada.gov.ca. Look that up in the search engine. Go through that. You will find that there is a contract tender from 2015, 2016, looking for companies to submit basically their best quote, who would provide the best service, okay, making these items for Canada's response to COVID-19. This is not a conspiracy theory. I've looked it up myself. So my whole point, that reason why I brought that up, is I have to agree 100% with you, Del. I believe that these plans, and no, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I really don't like that word. I prefer truth seeking. I didn't make this up. It's the real Canadian government website. I never even heard this term till it came out before. So how did they know about it back in 2015? So that's exactly what you're saying, Del, that a lot of these laws that are slowly and very quietly being changed, they do come to fruition or become a piece of the puzzle, I believe, as the future goes on, don't you?
Hmm. Well, that's the whole part of what game theory is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Game theory is you want an outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you start at the outcome you want, and you work backwards to all the different little things you can put into place to get that outcome to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about it like this, is that a snowstorm that happens in Manitoba affects the bee population over here in New Hampshire, that affects the truck driving industry that's going to California, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you've started here for your outcome to happen here, and then
Mm-hmm.
these things could all not be connected, right? Looking at them at there, but they are connected, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole part out of it. I think it was, if anybody remembers that TV show Prison Break,
Oh, I
uh,
like that show. Mm-hmm.
right? That was the whole part, what the tattoos and all that stuff was, all
Mm-hmm.
game theory. He had put all these things in plan before he went in there to get
Mm-hmm.
his brother
Yeah.
Dominic out,
Yeah.
right? So he had set up all this stuff
To happen.
to happen to get his outcome,
Mm-hmm.
and that was sort of
And
loosely
he knew
based
the
on what game
probability.
theory is,
He knew the probability, I believe, too. So he
right?
knew what pieces had to fall into place, what might be able to fall away. But
Right,
like
to
you
get
said,
his outcome.
mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
that's what the whole thing is, and that's what I was sort of. If you watch, if they explain a little bit in there, but that's sort of like a really layman's term of what game theory is. To get
Mm-hmm.
an outcome, a bunch of things have to happen beforehand, but you set them all up,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Well,
So
you have to. If you
you're
don't, then you're
stacking
gonna.
the deck in your favor.
or you got to rely on fate, right? So you got to know what the probability is, or like you said, stacking
Right.
the deck in your favor, setting it all up. Whether, like, this guy was brilliant, the character he played. Like, this guy knew human nature, he knew everything. So, and it was almost like it looked like certain things would fail, but it was
Yeah.
almost like he
But
planned
he
for
had
it to
he had
fail.
contingency
Yes,
plans on that.
yes. If that failed, there was a contingency plan, or it looked like it failed, but it had to fail for something else to fall into place. Like, this guy was
Right.
brilliant that figured this out.
Yeah. But
But I
that's
guess,
that's the whole part of this slowly boiling the frog. In that you have to wonder that all the things that are happening here, you might think they're insignificant to you right now,
mm-hmm,
and like I've noticed a lot of things that have happened here with just restrictions that have happened here in Canada, and I'm wondering, why is this being put this way, or why is this happening? Like, doesn't make any sense. And then when you wonder why, when things add up and stack up, and you're going,
mm-hmm.
okay, now we're at this point here where where restrictions are happening at a, and it says, well, you should have known about this beforehand. That even with like they've done with the guns here in Canada,
I was thinking about that. Yep. Mm-hmm.
right? Like they put stuff in the what is it? I think there's only another year and a half left there now. They think
Yeah, but we had
during this part of the
Canada's.
pandemic, you had JT go in and pass his own laws without the House of Commons, and put things in place that
Because we had Canada's worst armed gun incident in Nova Scotia in 2019, before all this started, right? It's
yeah,
almost
the
like Prison
RCMP,
Break.
fake
Mm-hmm.
RCMP car rampage. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. But it's almost like what you talked about, Prison Break, right? Like I said, I know a lot of people are going to think I'm being a conspiracy theorist, but I welcome you to go look up what I suggested. I have seen people that have said they have found, now I don't know if it's under that title or what it may be, under the contract tender that I mentioned, but some people have gone back as far as 2013. I can't vouch for that. I have seen with my own eyes back to 2015. And in the exact words, Canada's response to CV, I'm shortening it, 19. So I've seen it with my own eyes. So it was not a conspiracy. It's not that I heard somebody tell me it, because it's gotten to that point now, even if it's a really reliable source. And again, we're kind of starting where we began. I think you have to question everything. I think you really do. And it's not that you're being suspicious, it's just that I think unless you see it with your own eyes and you do your own research, like everything we've told you tonight, I'll say to you right now, and I know Del says that you don't believe what we've told you. And it's not that we're telling you lies, we're not. We're sharing with what we believe to be our truth. But we encourage you, we urge you to go out there and do your own research, form your own opinions. Is there anything else you want to add to that, Del?
yeah. I guess another point out of this too is that even everything that you see, once technology leaves your house, it can be heavily manipulated, and things can be added there to look real, and that's where your discernment has to come into effect. Like even this this site there that Laura's seen there too, is that unless you can verify that that was an original document, that somebody didn't make it up, just like the one that you sent me there this morning, that was
That
probably
I
a
did
more
not
fake
click on a link.
propaganda.
I did not click on a link. Okay.
Yeah.
I went to the Canadian government website. I
Right.
went there and did a search myself.
Mhm.
I did not click any links. Now, again, could it have been added? I've seen it in more than one place. So, now, did somebody add it in there? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe there's people in there
Right.
hacking their government website. I will give them that. I will.
Yeah.
I will. But again,
That's all I was going to add, is that you
what
have
does that say for our Canadian government website if there's in there people hacking and adding stuff?
right, and then you have to wonder who is doing that. Could it be the Canadian military propaganda unit that's
Mm-hmm.
doing this and
Mm-hmm.
putting this story out there
Mm-hmm.
to put all this stuff out? Like, there's so many questions that are out there. That's what, question everything.
That's right. And he is right. Dell is very, very skeptical, much more skeptical than I am. I say that we meet in the middle. But like I said, he's taught me many things, including that just because I seen a video of somebody doing that, I wasn't going to take their word for it. I didn't click any links. I specifically went to the site myself. I didn't even take their web address. I Googled our Canadian government web, not Googled, searched for it. Made sure I had it, the right site. It wasn't a fake site or anything like that. And I did my own search. I went through the articles myself. Now, again, could somebody have planted it? Yes, very well. So on that note, you guys, we had a great discussion tonight. We're so glad that you guys all joined us, that you joined in the conversation, that you added your thoughts. You had some great questions, some great comments. Thank you so, so much. Deli, you want to tell them where to find you?
Yeah, you can find me Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern here on UPRN. And this week I have returning guest and a favorite of both of ours, Laura's and I's, Varla Ventura, coming back on again for a little Christmas show. And she talks about pukas, ghosts, and fairies, and
talk about Krampus.
And we got Christmas coming on, and the lore around Christmas time. So tune in for that one.
And I want to thank you all again for being here. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be. If you'd like to get a hold of me, you can find me on facebook.com/The Angel Rock. I have 2 groups on Facebook, one called Paranormal University for all things paranormal. I also have the Angel Rocker Tribe for all things like how to contact your spirit guides, how to access your own intuition, chakras, energy, power of mind, power positivity, and things like that. I will be back next Monday, same time, same place, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to 11 p.m. Next week, I have an amazing guest. I mentioned her earlier, Marielle Ford Clark from Ireland, and she's had a near-death experience and all kinds of stuff. She's a super cool lady. You guys are going to love her, right, Del? You've had her on before.
Yeah. Yeah, I had her on there a week or 2 ago. Yep, super great.
Oh, we got some great comments. Dave says, thanks, guys. Good night. Zach says, great show tonight. Have a good night, my friends. And Shannon says, thank you both. Sean and I truly enjoyed it. Well, we loved having all of you guys here, too. So thank you. Sending you guys out, and girls, so much love and light. And we will see you next week. Have a good one, everybody. Mwah. See you then.